that's where I am at this point. But I would reduce the teaching of art, music, and physical education by 1/3. Right now, we teach art once a week. We teach music classes are held twice a week, and physical education is twice a week. And so we would reduce 1/3 of those positions, which would mean that probably 2 out of every 5 days, one of those programs would not be offered at the school. And the little school, the bachelor school as well. Aside from the curriculum issue here, the education issue here, when children are in these classes, this is when the classroom teacher has their contracted planning time. So in order to live up to the contract, in order to provide that time, then we'd have to find out how we would do that. And so the way in which that would most likely occur would be to reduce the overall number of hours of instructional time. Right now in the elementary school, we're about 940, 950. We would go down to the minimum of 900 hours, which again is putting kids at risk in terms of their achievement. 900 is the minimum. I think we should be above the minimum. We are above the minimum. But in order to deal with this financial issue, we would have to come down to the minimum. And the way that would likely occur is probably a weekly early release day. I have no details on that, but just thinking about it with the principals leads us to that conclusion. There may be other solutions that we're going to have to brainstorm, but when you take things out and you're not putting anything in to replace it, what you do with children. At the middle school, in a similar fashion, we continue with music, art, and physical education, but we add in international cultures and we add in technology. This is part of students in grades 6, 7, and 8 take every day. For a quarter of the year, they're taking either music or art or technology or international cultures, and then they have physical education on top of that. So this would reduce it pretty much by 50%. And again, as with the elementary school, it would reduce the overall instructional time. Right now, the middle school is at about 970, 960 hours. The minimum for the middle school also is 900 hours, and we would bring that number down. We would not teach Spanish or French, no foreign language in the middle school, and so you see the reduction of 2 foreign language teachers. We would also eliminate the middle school librarian. We have a professional librarian at the middle school. We have paraprofessionals staffing each of our elementary schools' libraries. We would eliminate the professional position and simply staff it with a paraprofessional. And I think that's a significant loss because at the middle school, you're using the library for a lot of research and trying to teach students at that level higher levels of research that a professional librarian should be available to work with. The high school would lose an academic teacher and also physical education, which is an elective course. And many people might say, well, it's an elective, we can do without it. You can do without gym in 11th and 12th grade. You hated gym when you were in high school, so let's do without it. However, keep in mind that when you take those 30 kids each period out of a physical education class, they're going to be someplace. It's an elective. They'll be going into another elective, and the class sizes will be going up. So, and it also flies in the face of what we're trying to do in terms of nutrition and physical activity. We would lose, we have 2 integrated technology teachers, one for the elementary schools and one for the secondary schools. And these 2 people, Ed Biggs and Joanne Coughlin, work directly with teachers and students in talking about not just how you work in technology in a computer lab, but how are you using technology to integrate it directly into that science class, that math class, social studies, and so forth. Again, go back to that and read that national report. You can just Google on tough times, tough choices, and you'll get a great summary of that report. technology is essential in all that we do, and we need to be continuing to support that, particularly for our students at the high school level. So the last reduction would be to eliminate the instrumental music program here at the elementary level and also at the middle school. We simply can't support it, and that would be both band and chorus at both elementary and middle level. Last, under paraprofessionals, we would reduce by 1/3 the staffing for library and computer labs here at the elementary level, which would mean those facilities would be closed again 2 out of every 5 days. So the net result is, with a few other changes, reducing department heads, math department heads, science department heads coming up, trying to save some money. These are people who get a stipend to work in the content areas, particularly at the secondary level. So math department head, science department head, and so forth. They teach 80%, that is they teach, and then 20% their work is in that curriculum area. So we would be doing away with those positions. The net result is, as you can see it, it's not the North Reading Public Schools that I know. I'm not going to be able to deliver on the kind of quality that we have. And while some people might say tighten that belt for a year and get through it, you don't recover. You don't recover that lost education for kids. You know that. You have children. You know what happens. You're cutting back, and that has a ripple effect over a period of time. I don't like to admit it, but I will say that I do think here at the Hood School, the impacts over the last 3 to 5 years of higher class sizes has had an impact. We've seen it in terms of the MCAT scores. And that's not just here at the Hood School. There's concern at all elementary levels. So that's where we are. What can you do? You can really dig into this. You can really familiarize yourself with budgets and what's needed to run school districts, what's needed to run towns. You can play the role of active citizen. You should be attending or encouraging people to attend the public hearing coming up in March. Town meeting begins on April 9th. Although there's some discussion about holding off on the budget decisions until later in April, until we know more information from the state level. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. This truly is, these are tough times and tough choices need to be made. So that's my presentation. We're going to broadcast it, but we're also open to questions on the budget right now. And yes.
I just wondered if you knew the price per thousand for the superintendent's budget override. We had hard figures to tell people when that was.
I don't have the price. I want to say, based on the 37 cents on the other, it's probably closer to 45 cents.
Thank you.
Yes, Janine.
Just so that everyone understands, this override would only be for 08. It would not extend past that. So at the end of next year, we'd be faced with the same budget shortfall and the need to carry forward and possibility of another override unless, like some miracle, the state just has an abundance of money. How would we handle that next year?
Gina, that's a great question, and thank you for reminding me. Last year, at this time, the town and the school, the Board of Selectmen and the school committee came to the decision to not go for an override last year. Remember that the town approved an override for schools, 1.2 million 3 years ago, and there was a commitment on the part of the school committee to sustain that override, that money for 3 years. And so the school committee has stuck with that commitment. But last year, the recommendation was that the school and the town would develop a 3-year budget so that voters would have a clear understanding, not just for '08, but '09 and fiscal 2010. The school committee has developed the 3-year projections. You don't see it here. Friday of this week, when our finance planning team is meeting, I believe that we will get the numbers from the town side as to what it will look like. And the purpose for doing that is to consider a 3-year override. How that would work would most likely be that we would put out what it would cost for 3 years. Now, I'm going to tell you, the sticker shock on that, would make you fall over immediately. However, the purpose here is to if that override ever was passed, not to immediately jump out and spend all of that money in the first year. It would be used in year 1 to a certain level, year 2 to the next level, and then year 3 to the third level. And so it would ease it in. But again, I think this finance planning team has to come to some real understanding on that, because otherwise, if there's just a 1-year override, I'm probably going to be back here next year addressing you with the same scenario. All right? Because that carry forward budget is basically addressing the question, what does it cost in a time of inflation to, with contracts and increases, what does it cost? The inflation alone is 4%. I think it's actually 4.2%. Healthcare. This is a huge issue. It's been running 15 to 18% increase each year. Now, in the town of North Reading, employees who participate in healthcare pay 30%. The town pays 70%. The state minimum is 50%. But I noticed, for example, the Boston teachers just ratified their contract and took a reduction in the contribution from the city of Boston. I believe they were at 90%. We know in North Reading that the 70% rate is pretty typical in for most communities in this area. Could we get it down a little bit? Yes, you can, but it's going to come with very difficult negotiations because it's a benefit. And that's a benefit for the school and for the town side as well. So if you just take health care alone, health costs alone, insurance, you take the cost of utilities, and you take inflation, you can see that it's going to be in that annual increase of 5 to 6%, period. Go to the gas pump and you can see how that's fluctuating, and then multiply that out when you start thinking about purchasing utility. And even though we work in a collaboration, we don't buy our utilities as the North Reading School Department. We join with other communities in a collaborative effort, and we've been doing it for years. Same thing with buses transportation. We're out here right now trying to, we'll be negotiating a new bus contract for the next 3 years. And we're passing off the cost of that bus transportation to you. And if that goes up higher, then the cost is passed on through the user fees. The school committee did make a commitment this year not to increase those user fees. We are going to drain out a good amount of money that's in, for example, athletic revolving accounts. When people are paying user fees, it goes into a revolving account. But that money is used to deal with the year-to-year fluctuations. It's not a bank account. It's not something that you're socking money away. You're using that money to pay for services as they occur. So if you see in that top line, it says minus 125,000. That's because we're taking it out of revolving accounts. And keep in mind, those revolving accounts, they're not replenished on an annual basis. So that's a kind of a risk that we're depending on. 125,000. That's a one-shot amount of money. That's not going to be here the following year. So getting back to your question, Janine, we will, by the public hearing on the 12th, have that 3-year budget, and with